Summary Offences Amendment, Safe Access to Reproductive Health Clinics Bill 2017, first reading.
Mr Deputy President, I move that this bill be now read a second time. It is with great hope and anticipation that I introduce the Summary Offences Amendment, Safe Access to Reproductive Health Clinics Bill. I bring this bill to the Parliament because every day in New South Wales, women are subject to harassment and intimidation as they attempt to enter reproductive health clinics where abortions are provided. The staff of reproductive health clinics are also subject to unacceptable harassment. Harassment and intimidation of anyone is always unacceptable. The type of harassment and intimidation that women and staff of reproductive health clinics endures should be no different. There is no place for it in our communities. It is unacceptable that women trying to enter reproductive health clinics have to run the gauntlet of people who try to stop them with physical harassment and verbal abuse. It is unacceptable that women are jostled and filmed. It is unacceptable that women are forced to look at distorted graphic images and told that they are murderers and that they are going to hell. It is unacceptable that the dedicated staff are often followed and harassed on the way into and out of work. For women in our community who have the legal right to make choices about when and if they will have children, the harassment and intimidation they are forced to endure outside clinics is not just unacceptable, it has to stop. The sad reality is that our current laws are not adequate to stop the harassment and intimidation. If this bill is passed, it will make it stop, and that's why I stand here today introducing the bill. If passed, this bill will protect the safety and well-being, the privacy and the dignity of women accessing reproductive health services across New South Wales. It will also protect the employees of reproductive health services. This bill is not a debate about whether women are able to access abortion and other reproductive health services. By law, they do and they can. What this bill does is protect the right of a person to attend a reproductive health clinic without fear of intimidation or harassment, or with their privacy being invaded or their dignity attacked or diminished. There is no other health service where patients are subject to this kind of harassment. That is why women in New South Wales need this bill to become law. I acknowledge that some members of the community have deeply held views about abortion. This bill does not seek to prevent people from holding or expressing their views, nor protesting about their views on abortion. However, this bill does not allow deeply held views to be an excuse for intimidation and harassment outside clinics. The bill prohibits certain behaviour and creates certain offences within what will be known as safe access zones. Safe access zones are defined as an area within a radius of 150 metres of a reproductive health clinic at which medical or surgical abortions are provided, or a pedestrian access point to a building that houses a reproductive health clinic at which abortions are provided. Legislation for safe access zones has now been passed and implemented in 4 Australian states and territories. The ACT, Tasmania and Victoria have successfully implemented the zones, and just last week I was pleased to see that the Northern Territory also passed a safe access zone bill. The use of 150 metres in this bill is consistent with other jurisdictions and is working well in those locations. The bill before the House will insert a division into the Summary Offences Act 1998 to include certain objects to make clear the intentions of the Parliament in making these laws. The objects of the bill state that by passing this law, the Parliament intends that A, the fact that the public is entitled to access health services, including abortions, should be respected, and B, the public should be able to enter and leave reproductive health clinics at which abortions are provided without interference and in a manner that protects their safety and well-being and respects their privacy and dignity, as should employees and other persons who need to access such clinics in the course of their duties and responsibilities. This is the simple but important premise of this bill. To turn to the detail of the bill creates a number of offences for what is defined as prohibited behaviour. The penalty for these offences is proposed to be 150 penalty units or imprisonment for 12 months. These penalties are consistent with what is in place in Victoria and recognise the seriousness of the offences in question. The penalties respond to the impact these activities have on women wanting to safely and privately access these services. Section 11K of the bill makes it an offence for anyone within a safe access zone to harass, intimidate, interfere with, threaten, hinder, obstruct or impede by any means any person accessing, leaving or attempting to access or leave any reproductive health clinic at which abortions are provided. This section addresses both the physically intimidating and sometimes verbally abusive behaviour directed at women accessing reproductive health clinics. The reality for clinics in New South Wales is that on a regular basis there are either individuals or organised groups who describe describe themselves as sidewalk counsellors that stand in front of people trying to enter or leave clinics. These individuals and groups block the entrance with their bodies, sometimes aim frames and other signage. There is almost not a week goes past that someone in Surrey Hills doesn't contact me to tell me what they have witnessed and their concern about what can be done to stop the behaviour towards those trying to leave or enter the clinic on Devonshire Street. This has most recently also been a recurring problem in Albury. For those who have witnessed the behaviour, they report physical scuffles, verbal abuse and threats made towards those going in. They also report the distress this harassment causes to patients trying to enter. This clause also seeks to pick up activities that are regularly undertaken by those outside clinics, including handing out upsetting leaflets, displaying distressing and sometimes graphic images, and using props to upset and dissuade women from attaining abortions. Section 11L of the bill makes it an offence without reasonable excuse to obstruct or block a footpath or road leading to any reproductive health clinic in which abortions are provided. It should not be the case that women or clinic employees are physically forced to cross the road, find a path around or run a gauntlet of intimidating and abusive groups of people. Section 11M makes it an offence to cause actual or potential distress or anxiety to persons in a safe access zone. Section 11M of the bill states that a person who is in a safe access zone must not make a communication that relates to abortions by any means in a manner A, that is able to be seen or heard by a person accessing, leaving, attempting to access or leave, or inside a reproductive health clinic at which abortions are provided, and B, that is reasonably likely to cause distress or anxiety to any such person. For clarity, it's important to note that this section does not apply to any employee or other person who provides services at the reproductive health clinic. This clause attempts to ban activities such as that have been reported by health services elsewhere, such as displaying dolls in prams splattered with fake blood or standing silently with mouths taped shut very close to those trying to enter. It is clear that people engaged in prohibited activities have a variety of different motives for their actions. They may be seeking to protest about abortion or may genuinely believe that they are helping women in need, saving lives, providing alternatives to abortion or educating people about abortion and its impact, amongst other reasons. However, when this conduct takes place directly outside health services, it has the effect of intimidating and causing great anxiety to many patients and health service staff and simply should not occur. Finally, the Section 11N of the bill prohibits the intentional capturing of visual data for another person by any means without their consent, if that person is in a safe access zone and is accessing, leaving or attempting to access or leave or is inside a reproductive health clinic at which abortions are provided. It also prohibits the publishing or distribution of a recording of another person without their consent in a safe access zone, and if the recording contains particulars likely to lead to the identification of that person. The bill defines capturing visual data to include recording of any sort of live streaming or being capable of distribution, and it also precludes attempting to distribute captured visual data. The need for this section arises because the filming and recording of women by some of the so-called sidewalk counsellors is used as yet another way to try and shame women for accessing these services. This is the issue that most people draw attention to me about that causes them the most distress. Who is filming them and what is happening to that material as they are seeking to leave or enter a clinic? There are provisions, of course, in the bill where there is a reasonable excuse defence, so that recordings by security cameras installed by the company contracted by the clinic or legitimate recording undertaken by police in gathering evidence for enforcement purposes is, of course, not captured by the provisions. This offence is also limited to circumstances where the recording could identify an individual and which identifies a person as a person accessing premises at which abortions are performed. Importantly, a final section of the bill makes it clear that there is no restriction on the right to those who wish to protest about laws regarding abortion. The bill makes it clear that conduct occurring in the forecourt or on the footpath or road outside Parliament House here in Macquarie Street, the carrying out of any survey or opinion poll or with the authority of a candidate, or the distribution of any handbill or leaflet by or with the authority of a candidate during the course of a Commonwealth, state or local government election, referendum or plebiscite is not subject to these offences. The laws will not interfere with the right to public assembly or protest relating to abortion when it comes to the Parliament or elections. This bill is aimed squarely at providing safety to women accessing a health service to which they are entitled while preserving their privacy and dignity, as well as for those people who face the same mistreatment simply due to their workplace at a clinic. There should be no green light for those who seek to intimidate and harass women as they seek access to reproductive health clinics. In Victoria, a 2011 study in relation to just one clinic where abortions are performed found that 85% of women surveyed reported seeing protesters outside the clinic, 74% reported seeing anti-abortion displays such as posters and props, 55% reported that protesters had said things to them, 60% reported that protesters had tried to hand them anti-abortion information, and 20% had someone attempt to block their entry to the clinic. If applied to New South Wales, and particularly the two clinics that I'm aware of in Surrey Hills and Albury at the moment, these figures would be very similar. Since announcing my intention to bring this bill forward to the Parliament, I've had many people send me emails, pull me aside at functions and send me private Facebook messages where they have told their story and explained to me why this bill is so important to them. This harassment occurring in New South Wales is not isolated, nor is it benign. I would like to share just three scenarios that have been told to me by many different people, different occasions but the same types of unacceptable behaviour. A woman related to the story of how when she attended a clinic with her partner, she was jostled, and as her partner tried to shield her and push the people back to get her through the door of the clinic, a woman who was blocking the door fell to the ground screaming that the man had physically abused her. Another woman was accompanying her daughter to the clinic when she was horrified not just at the intimidation and threats that they endured, but that she also realised that the people at the front of the clinic had been filming her daughter as she entered. I have also heard from men who have accompanied their partners to a clinic to find themselves harassed and pushed and their partners verbally abused. All of them say that experience is far worse than the difficult choices they've had to make around the difficult reproductive choices that they've had to make with them and their partners. If this bill is passed, it will put a stop to this kind of unacceptable behaviour. Mr Deputy President, this is not a bill that seeks to change the current laws in relation to abortion in New South Wales. But as a pro-choice MP and a proud member of Emily's List, I can't ignore that safe access zones touch on the issue of abortion. I believe that the laws governing abortion in New South Wales should be changed. I believe that abortion offences should not be included in the Crimes Act. And I believe that women should be able to access abortion on demand. I look forward to another bill that will be coming before this House later in the year that will seek progress on these issues. And I will continue to work with all of the women and men who support abortion law reform in New South Wales. Mr Deputy President, bills like these do not come before our parliaments without a huge amount of work from people in our communities. I would like to place on record my thanks to the staff who work in reproductive health clinics every day. These workers are champions for women. They truly understand that for women to be free, they must have the right to decide to decide whether they become a parent, and if they choose to do so, the number of timing of the children they will have. The workers in these clinics work under difficult circumstances. I hope that this bill is passed to give them the support they need to carry on this vital work. I would also like to thank the many women who have provided advice, support and suggestions as I have drafted this bill. To my friends south of the border in Victoria, your work has paved the way for this bill in New South Wales, and I thank you for your wise counsel. To my friends in unions, to those working as lawyers and those working to advance equality for women in a variety of amazing organisations, I thank you for your guidance, support and patience as this bill has been put together. To the creative people behind the scenes who will work to gain support for this bill, thank you for your time and effort to bring the online campaign and the real-life campaign to life. To the many women and men in the Labor Party who have been champions for abortion law reform and for the rights of women to live free from harassment, violence and intimidation, I thank you for your tenacity and continued support as we progress these issues together. Finally, to every woman who has ever been the subject of harassment and intimidation as you have tried to enter an abortion clinic, the behaviour you have had to contend with has no place in our community. It is wrong and it is shameful that our laws have not been able to give you the protection that you needed when you were at one of your most vulnerable points. Today, with this bill, we seek to ensure that no women in the future are subject to such unacceptable and harmful behaviour. I commend the bill to the House.